Well, this is a special episode of 911 and the 864, part of a several parts mini-series called EKG, the Nitty-Gritty.
Nitty-gritty.
Right. We're just going to cover what you need to know, we think.
Well, I think it's important, it's one of the best tools that we have at our disposal, non-invasive. Right. We can learn so much about our patient, but the thing is, I think people beat themselves down because they're trying to look at it through all these different angles. We're not cardiologists. We just need to know if the patient's sick or not sick.
Right. And hopefully this will meld together with your clinical view of the patient. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, if a patient looks unwell or not, and this is just another tool in the toolbox. Okay. But from what I found, and I think you can agree, what's out there is overwhelming. So what we're going to do is do 8-minute segments and just cover several areas of the EKG. We're hoping everyone will be better at it after we're finished. We are not experts. You will not be an expert when you're finished, but we think you'll be pretty good with most things that can be presented to you.
Yeah. What's the key word there? Most.
Not all.
Okay. So I think honestly the best way to get started off is just talking about rate, rhythm, and quality of the EKG. Anytime that I, put somebody on the monitor, the first thing I'm looking at is their heart rate.
Yeah.
What rhythm it is.
Yep.
And then the quality.
Yep.
Regular versus irregular. And that's kind of my go-to. So we can start off normal sinus. All right. So we'll go ahead.
All right. So on the screen now should be a picture of an EKG or, a rhythm strip along the bottom with a very normal appearing sinus rhythm beat.
Yeah. But when you talk about normal sinus, we can talk about it in ranges. So we talk about sinus Brady.
Yep.
Which we know Brady is less than 60.
Yes.
We talk about normal sinus, the rate of 60 to 100.
Correct.
And we talk about sinus tachycardia, which is, going to be your anything above 100.
Right.
Still coming out of the SA
right.
node. So we see the P wave, we see the QRS, we see the T wave, and we kind of want to keep this basic, so we're not going to get too much into depolarization versus repolarization. But some key things that are good here is that we look like we have a nice tight QRS with a P wave, and every QRS has a T wave after it. You agree?
Yeah, and I think something to be said about that is, you get handed an EKG or you print off this 12 lead and you look, and you should look at it the same way every time, right? So we look at the strip that's beneath it and we're like, okay, there's a P, so that's what I do. What's the rate? Okay, let's calculate that out. Now, I think most people listening to this video would know the age-old between 2, countdown 300, 150. I think that you know that by now. If not, you can look up how to do that counting of the rate by the strip. That's very easy. Also, you can probably, and we will go further as we do different bits of things, and look up the normal intervals. But largely, this looks normal. So you're saying, okay, is this regular? Yes, it's regular, meaning there's a P wave before every QRS, and then there's a T wave that follows, and it starts again. The rate looks to be, let's see, between 70-ish?
I was going to say 72-ish.
Yeah, 70s, let's say.
71.
Okay. 71, you want to be that exact, Michael?
71, yeah.
Okay, so there you have it, right? That's, we know that there's a P wave before everyone, so we know it's sinus. Now we know that the rate seems to be within the normal range. So I think we would say normal sinus rhythm. So normal sinus rhythm would be our interpretation of this one, at least with this one lead we're given, correct?
Yes, and typically, that's what we're hoping, that because that tells us that our conduction is coming down the heart the right way, right?
Well. We need a picture.
And so the picture that you asked me to pull up, this is right here.
Yeah.
And this is just 3 basic boxes that display what we are talking about, what just happened, what was on the screen. And I think it's very important that we at least dabble into some of these terms, even though Fabiano doesn't necessarily agree because she wants to keep this basic.
Well, when have you ever said in a clinical situation, I think it has to do something with ventricular depolarization? You're never going to say that. No. But I get it. Let's paint the picture for how the electricity travels to create these complex.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here too.
Oh, good! I can't wait.
So, all right. So when we have our P wave, our atria is depolarizing.
Yep.
So quickly, nothing in depth. Tell me what's happening. What's happening with the heart? The conduction is going down, right?
Right, going across and down. The atria has to go across a little bit.
And those arrows kind of... All right, so then our ventricular depolarization is going to be our QRS.
Yep.
And I think it's very important that you look at where these waves are. These Q waves, this R wave, this S wave, looking at where that's at. Now what's happening in ventricular depolarization?
Yeah, well, now it's traveling down the ventricles, the septum, and across, all the muscle cells around the ventricles.
And we have a good image of that right there.
Yep.
And then finally, when you have your T wave, we have ventricular repolarization.
So,
and go ahead.
No, that's okay. So it's traveling again. That's it goes in the same sort of direction, and I think you can see that as it repolarizes, it creates a different sort of, it creates the T wave. Now, if you could, Michael, pull up that image of where the electrodes are placed, because that'll actually help with the visual part.
Well, I want to, before we move on, why do I not have, I think I know, but why do I not see on my EKG atrial repolarization? And I think the answer is it actually is very hard to see. It gets buried somewhere in that T wave.
It does, and the other thing is it's already happening, right? Like, so once this depolarizes and then the ventricles depolarize, that's already starting to repolarize. So it just gets buried in the activity.
So evidence of it gets buried within.
Yeah, you're not going to see it.
Okay.
But let's go back to that one other picture that actually gives a clinically relevant view. Right, okay, now don't get overwhelmed by this. But I want you to look at it, follow the yellow, right, as it travels down. You get that P wave, and then it's traveling across, and then it's traveling down the ventricle. So you can actually see how the depolarization travels all the way down. Now the whole thing is in this, the energy, if you will, is across the whole thing, and so you get this flattening between the complex and the T wave, and then it starts to repolarize, which is where you get the T wave.
And I think the reason why it's very important that we talk about which node that it comes out is because that's where our rate is directly going to be reflected of.
Yeah.
We know from paramedic school our SA node is typically going to fire at 60 to 100 normally, right?
Right.
So I think it's important. And then our AV node, when our SA node wears out, that's going to be 40 to 60.
The AV node will come into play too when we talk about blocks. Okay, so on the screen now,
this is the picture with a guy.
Right, is a super fit
guy. Not that guy.
Let's be clear about that. You don't have to worry about all the yellow boxes on this screen. I want you to just mainly focus on these lead placements. And so now you understand when you have these lead placements, they're measuring that electricity, that energy that's coming down the heart and then going back up for repolarization. And so that's why those leads are placed there. Does that make sense?
No. So go to a little bit more detail.
Okay, so it's not like we put these on the stomach. We don't put them up higher. We put them across exactly. We kind of follow the typical axis of a heart here, okay? And so we can tell a lot about placement of a heart and what the heart's doing because these are placed there. So let's say these are detectors. Don't even think of them as leads. They're like little detectors.
Detectors.
Yeah, and they detect the electricity as it comes towards it.
Right at that spot of the heart.
Exactly,
though, right?
But that's why it's looking at it from all different views. Think of these as little cameras, and they're all looking at the heart at different views.
Yeah, so V1 is going like literally the electrical activity at that spot,
right,
and it taking a little
snapshot.
Yeah.
Oh, snapshot.